September 7, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. This is how I saw the charts today. You can look down at the descriptions below. You can see where I timestamped where I thought I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. There was only one piece of economic data that came out today, which was at 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is the unemployment claims, which came out right about here. But as you can see, the market was already kind of selling off. And then overall, I would say it kind of looked like a W formation, but it was very choppy. I didn't find this larger trend channel until much later in the day, but even then it didn't really help me. And mainly traded off a bunch of ranges and pretty much channels. So it was kind of mixed trading today. It was not very obvious. There was a lot of volatility today. I noticed the volume was much higher. Just that's mainly because the rollover of the September contracts to the October to December contracts is coming up in about 8 days. So if you look at the volume for these guys, it's actually starting to shift over to the newer contracts. So actually tomorrow, most people will trade the September contracts or the ES U23 for probably one more day. And technically, you can still trade it all next week for 5 more days, and it expires on next Friday. And then it will go to the ESZ23 for the last quarter of the year. But until then, there's going to be some volatility as people start trading the other one. And as I said, today the trading wasn't very obvious. It was kind of, well, it was a little bit tricky in a few areas. I saw kind of some traps, and I managed to score 2 trades, which were both green. So I'm fortunate on those 2 trades, and I'm going to go through the trading now. So in the pre-market, I drew the pre-market high right here, which price action never really came back to, and the pre-market lows, which it did revisit a few times. And then there was another area where I thought it could have been a range that price action would look like it was at least coming and respecting. So this is the pre-market, this gray area. I don't trade the pre-market. I saw a few setups, but I'm just going to go ahead and just move on for now. At the low of the pre-market range, it was just kind of getting choppy. It opens. I actually see like a new low here. It's like a first entry short. You don't get a second entry short till about here, but this isn't a good signal bar. And right now, it looks like it's one push up, pull back, and a second push up. So even though you're thinking it could go short, I saw potentially this channel coming up. So right here, to take a short, you're thinking there could be a potential bounce reaction here. There's not much room to scalp out. The actual first setup that I saw, and is actually the first trade that I took, was this higher low right here. So what I saw was, I saw this orange channel potentially in play, but then it broke out, made a new high, and I drew this green channel going up, and it confirmed the bottom pretty nicely. The top, not so much, but I saw it as a potentially valid channel. What it did was it broke out. So from here, I saw it as it's a break of this green channel. It made one attempt to go up, and on this first attempt, it did meet the high, pulls back, and let's just kind of go back in real time, show you what I was seeing in real time, what I was thinking in real time. Made one attempt, pulls back, and is trying to make a second attempt. And when it first touched down here, I thought maybe there's a trend line here, and I like this one touch, two touch. And then I also turned it into a channel here. So that's where I came up with this yellow channel. So as the price action was unfolding, first I saw this orange channel, got a little more shallow and turned into this green channel. Then it got more shallow again and turned into this yellow channel. But then I was thinking when it broke out of this green channel, it made one attempt up, came back, and when it touched here, I'm thinking actually we might be in this yellow channel. And I saw this as a potential higher low and is bouncing off here. So I thought the close of this signal bar was pretty good. There's enough momentum to probably push through, even though it'd meet the high. It'd probably push through and at least give me a scalp. So I actually entered. I entered one tick. I wanted to enter one tick above, but when this actually broke above and first, it opened here and I think it broke down below and then it went up. I put in my entry right here and I got a little bit of slippage by one tick, but that's okay. I was able to get out for my 1 point scalp. So it worked out pretty nicely. Price is going to continue moving. Comes up. This blue line doesn't exist yet. It comes in to play a little bit later. It's just chopping. Breaks out of this yellow channel, but it was like the first push up, second push up. There's nothing really there that I thought was worth taking. I did play with the idea maybe there's a channel here, but it just looked kind of shallow, not really giving me any clean setup. I'll go ahead and leave it there for now. Then it sells off into this orange channel coming down. It consolidates in this trading range. Saw a new low here, double bottom new low. The first entry short pulls up, and I'm thinking here, since it's the top of this range, this could be a fail breakout, and this could be setting up for a potential second entry short because this one closed below the EMA. I'm not uh, that happy with this signal bar, but looks like it's entering this smaller trading range. So I didn't have an order ready. I just didn't like the setup, but it looked like it would have worked. Comes back down, smashes through the bottom, consolidates. So this is actually confirming the pre-market lows now, which is nice. So I'm clearly thinking, okay, we're in a range. Now, whether we make it back to the top or not, I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like it's one leg up, pulls back. Maybe it's going to make another leg up, and I was suspicious that there might be some kind of resistance here, or it might actually make a big rally push up to potentially the pre-market high, or maybe the high might be respected up here. So I wasn't sure, but I was just kind of keeping that in mind of the big picture. Prices then kind of rallied up, sells off. You do technically have a new high, first entry long, technically a second entry long right here, and it breaks above, but I didn't like the way these candles were stacking up. They're very, very wicky. There's like big wicks on each side, so it looks like there's a little bit of indecision. When you see this, and then finally see this, so you have a confirmed second entry long, this isn't very convincing. This is also closed bearish, so you have first entry long, second entry long. I felt at any time this could have just kind of continued downwards as probable as it was potentially moving up. So I didn't know, so I had to sit it out. And prices continued chopping. And throughout the whole day, I felt there were a lot of setups just like that, where it was revealing and setting up second entries, but they just felt a little dicey just because the tug of war seemed strong for both sides. So then prices continued chopping. I thought it was inside this range, or what I perceived as a range, then it breaks out. At this point, I drew this connecting trend line because I like this as potential one touch, two touch. And I saw this, I thought maybe there's another touch here. And then the bottoms fit semi well. So it kind of went up, and I was expecting maybe a little bit of a rejection. It broke up through and it kept going. So then I knew this has probably played out. I drew this ascending upward green channel. I'm watching it carefully. There's no entry to take it on though. Kind of breaks out. It attempts to make one push up. It already tested the highs. It's coming back down. And here I see a potential trade. So why did I see this trade here? So I noticed that this looked like there was some kind of resistance here. I believed it was here when I first saw this, and there was kind of like these three matching highs, maybe slightly one tick above. So I thought maybe there's a trading range here. It broke out. It looked like it was struggling right here, made a double top, came down, pushed up, and made one tick higher, and it couldn't quite get through. So I actually saw this as a potential breakout of potentially this blue line and the bottom of the pre-market creating its own little sub trading range. And I thought this might have been a failed breakout. So let me zoom in here. I actually saw this as a lower high because I actually saw this as one push up, first attempt up, it meets it, and it came back and it tried to make a second attempt up, then it failed. So I saw this as a potential trap and a potential fail breakout, and it would go back into the range. And I saw that there was enough room for a scalp before it hit the EMA. The EMA is trending up. So I saw this. I actually took the trade, one entry here, and I saw, okay, it's the break of this green channel, pushed up twice, it made a new high already, and now there's probably a lower high right here. It trapped everybody thinking it was going to go long and continue upwards. Closed very bearish, which I liked, and so I entered right at the close. When this closed, I entered one here. A safer entry, I think, would have been probably one tick below this guy. But I took it, and then I wanted to make sure I had enough room for the scalp before I hit the EMA, and I was able to. If you're going for 2 points, it would have worked as well. And prices continue moving down, hops around. It kind of respects this imaginary midline, not imaginary, but the midline of the pre-market. So this is the pre-market high, pre-market low, which is right here. And this is the midline. And I noticed that when it pushed up and it created a failed breakout, I was keeping in mind there's potential resistance here, and it was kind of confirmed, but I wasn't giving it as much respect as I think I should have. And it's rejecting here, it comes up, and it looks like it's for sure holding. I saw new high, first entry long, pulls back, and I'm wondering if it's going to bounce off this potential outside range. It bounces off, and I saw a second entry long potential, but I didn't like the fact that there's not much room before you potentially hit this resistance, which has been holding, and it's also the midline of the pre-market highs and lows. So I just had to kind of sit and wait. I wanted a higher low confirmation. Although this is a very nice signal bar, it's technically not strong enough to still make it up, so I had to wait. And you don't really get a higher low because, well, it just kind of flashed back down. And also keeping in mind, if I were to buy here, one tick above this big green bar, you would be buying at the high of this potential sub-orange range that I was thinking was in play. And it continues chopping. And it's hard to see, but I actually drew another blue trading range here, thinking there might be price action obeying some kind of range in here. And it looked like it was, but not for too long. It broke out. I thought it was a failed breakout, came back in, and then it flashed up. You can ignore this red channel for now. I'll just go ahead and delete it because it doesn't reveal itself till much later. Prices then came down. I saw this as a new high, and then I saw this as a lower high. So this lower high, I thought, okay, it's not a really good signal bar because I actually thought this was a new low, first entry short, comes all the way back down, pulls up, and it actually creates a second entry short. So I thought, okay, well, this is kind of this ugly looking second entry short, made one attempt up, pulls back. Maybe it's making a second attempt and it's now coming back down. It didn't quite touch the EMA, and I felt it's more likely kind of a lower high. But even though the EMA just is kind of holding prices down, it just looks a little ugly. So I wasn't sure what I was looking at right here, if it even was a setup. So I had to leave it alone. Prices continue moving down. It gives me more confidence that this big orange range might be the one in play, even though there was a small little consolidation here with this blue one. Kind of prices move up and it breaks out. I noticed that it's kind of coming up and it's not getting as high as here at the moment. So I'm wondering, okay, now so it's actually coming up matching the high and actually breaks up and out. So I don't see any good setup, but I do see a new low here. I saw a first entry short. I saw a second entry short. The problem with the second entry short is it's kind of the test of this high has been completed. So you first had this trading range up and it completed one push up, two push up, made it high. Comes back, and I'm thinking this might be one leg up, consolidation, a second leg up. So now this high here has tested and completed this leg. So it actually went up and tested here. However, there's no other reason to take a short here. Even though this signal bar is very bearish, that's not a good enough reason because this is the signal bar of the second entry short, and this is the trigger bar. There's not enough reason other than trusting that there's enough momentum to carry it downwards. So I saw this. I just felt, okay, well, there's something here. Maybe there's going to be a confirmation lower high, and you do get a lower high. The thing I don't like about this lower high is, and I'm trying not to be picky, but I'm just trying to be weeding out trades that I'm not 100% certain on, even if they might be high probability. The problem with this lower high, it confirms the second entry short, but there's no room now to scalp out before you get to the EMA. If you put it one tick below, you're pretty much selling right at the EMA, which has been respected a little bit in the past. So I wasn't sure, so I saw it. I saw it as confirmation. If only the EMA wasn't in the way or much lower, or this whole setup was below the EMA, then I would have felt confident taking the setup. Looks like, if you took the trade, it would have worked out. You could also seen it as a new high, first entry long, second entry long failure. So technically it was a second entry long failure, but I wasn't sure at the time. So I had to leave it alone, and it looked like it grinded down and it would have worked out. So I'll go ahead and just mark it as a failed second entry long. It felt kind of congested though, and you technically get the failure on this candle. So I saw it, but I wasn't sure, so I had to leave it alone. Prices in, continue chopping. Gets noisy. This big purple range doesn't exist yet because I wasn't sure where the bottom was or where the top was until I got to about here. But I only had one touch, two touch at the time. I saw a failed second entry short here. Technically, it's a new low here. Technically, a new low is here, and you have a first entry short. You have your second entry short here, but I saw it as one push up, pull back, second attempt down on this leg. So this first entry short, second entry short, and then the failure on this big green candle. But this big green candle, after it closes, is too late. The trade's already been made. So to take an entry off this terrible looking signal bar, it wasn't giving me a lot of confidence because these candles are pretty much the same size. Yes, there's a wick up here, but they're pretty much telling you the body is the same size. But it's flashing kind of this warning to me that it's hard to really know whether to go long or short. The best option for me was just to stay out of its way. And I also saw a higher low second entry long. So I saw this as new high, first entry long, setting up, bouncing off potential EMA, second entry long. It also was a higher low if you were still thinking it's first entry short, pulls back, second entry short, failure, then it created a higher low. But I didn't like this trade because it indicated price action told me previously that there was some kind of resistance here. So I felt like, well, even though it's bouncing off, this signal bar is so-so, not decisive enough for me. And by the time you get a confirmed second entry long to get a second key entry point, it doesn't look like there's much room to this top. And it just gave me kind of some feeling that it could fail, or it's just getting a little noisy, or it could just move sideways. And I don't want to sit in a trade if it's just going to take forever to play out, ideally. So then it moves up. So this is a potential fail breakout, second entry short, because it looked like a one touch, two touch. There was a little bit of reaction on this double candle, and it broke out. And I'm thinking, okay, there's a new low here, first entry short. You technically don't get a second entry short till about right here. But this second entry short isn't a very good signal bar, and is a failed breakout of what may or may not be a trading range, because I wasn't sure where the bottom was. At one time, I was having it a little bit higher up here, but it looked like there's too many violations down here, so I actually drew it down here. So even then, I wasn't sure prices were going to come back down. It was getting a little noisy because in the bigger picture, it looks like prices are slowly recovering all the way back up. So to convince myself to take a short on the second entry short and failed breakout was a little bit hard to convince myself. Plus the signal bar isn't very good. Plus I thought there was a channel coming up now and it could bounce off this bottom of this channel. Turns out it would have worked. And then you also get a lower high here, close below the EMA. The lower high, I thought, okay, I kind of saw it after the fact, after it already formed, and went back and thought about it. But it probably was a possible trade, confirming the second entry short, and it's moving back into this purple range that I thought was in play. So unfortunately, as I said, in real time, I didn't quite see it. If it was closing more bearish, like instead of this green, I think I would have probably triggered me to probably at least think about or take the trade. And I also saw a new high, first entry long, second entry long, and also a new low, first entry short, second entry short, confirms right here. Also confirms the failed second entry long right here. First entry long, second entry long on this candle confirms. So I think there's a possible trade here because it was, a decent signal bar for going short. Yes, you're running into potential low and maybe the midline, but that's based upon the strength and my confidence of whether the trading range is actually here or here. And as I said, I kind of drew it down to here. So it was there, but I wasn't 100% sure. And I had this down channel, this trend line drawn down at this point, thinking, okay, there might be a rejection here. It could be a possible trade. Whether it was actually tighter or not, whether there was enough room or not is kind of up for debate. So in hindsight, it looked like it was a possible trade. In real time, due to my experience, I wasn't sure, so I had to let it go. The prices continue moving down. It follows this channel down quite nicely. It looks like it's respecting it. Here's a break, and I'm thinking it might actually move to the other side. Consolidates, and yes, it breaks to the other side. I don't see a good trade, though. There is a channel that goes up, consolidates. I don't have this blue line in existence yet. It looks like it respected it, so it went up, excuse me, pushed up, broke out, tested the high, but it didn't break the high, came back down. After this big candle, I'm not so sure prices are going to come back and test the highs now, just because it's already moved pretty much halfway through the rally of this small little shortened trend channel going up. And it looks like it's coming back down. Now it's bouncing. I don't see any kind of safe entry for me to take. It chops around. It gets very, very noisy. Here, I finally draw this as a potential resistance. And again, I'm wondering if there's some kind of overlapping trading range that might be in play here. And I do see this as a new high, first entry long. This sets up, and I'm thinking there's a triple test here, but it's below the EMA. I'm not 100% sure there's a trading range here. There's a good signal bar. And when this bar formed, then I realized that there was a potential trade right here with a good signal bar and potential triple test. But by the time I saw that, this candle already formed to put my entry way down here. I'm asking the next candle, which hasn't printed yet, to come all the way back down to pick me up, then immediately reverse to go all the way back up. That isn't a very, I guess, reasonable assumption because it just came off the bottom. It probably wants to push all the way up to at least touch the top. So I felt the trade was already missed and I had to let it go. And of course, if I did put it one down here, it would never have picked me up. And if I put one tick above here, I felt it was risky because I thought it might have been coming up upon this resistance. Turns out both options would have been safe entries. One would have gotten filled and one would not have. The prices continue moving up. This is getting toward the end of the day and it's just getting choppy. So I don't want to play this just because it got kind of ugly and I'm already up 2 good trades for the day. So I just kind of watched the rest of it trade through. So today was definitely very choppy. There was a lot of volume, but it wasn't as, there was a lot of swings and a lot of setups, but I would say it was kind of tricky today. It wasn't super, there was a lot of areas where I felt, okay, it may or may not happen, or the setup may or may not be there. So in my opinion, it was a little tricky, choppy, and kind of ugly today. So hopefully that was helpful.